His MPs are taking a 6-week holiday for voting time in Hungary this.
Oral questions. Questions orales. The honourable member for Thornhill.
While Canadians go cold and hungry this Christmas, this Prime Minister is counting down the hours to another taxpayer-funded beach vacation. He and his MPs are taking a 6-week holiday for voting time and time again to quadruple the carbon tax and defeat Bill C-234 as they pressured senators to gut the bill that this House already passed. If they won't axe the tax today, why won't they come to work on Monday and finally take the tax off of farmers so the Canadians can eat this Christmas?
Yeah. What's so good about it? Nah, it's a beautiful day in Niagara, Mr. Riverstone.
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I'd like to begin by actually wishing all members in this House a happy holidays. I think everybody will be enjoying time with their families over the holidays, and we look forward to seeing everyone back here in February. But I think it's important to make sure that the facts are right, because it was actually Conservative senators that were bullying independent senators. In fact, the Conservative leader in the Senate was actually sanctioned by the other place for his terrible behavior. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Thornhill.
Speaker, we all know that the biggest bully in this House is the Prime Minister, and he is squashing any hope that Canadians had for getting relief this holiday season. They are doubling down once again on their plan to quadruple tax on gas, on groceries, on home heating, and on everything else. There is hardly enough money for food, let alone Christmas presents. 2 million people are eating in a food bank, families are left to skip meals, and children write Santa asking for warm boots rather than toys. Why do these Liberals insist on making Santa deliver the basic necessities instead of toys this Christmas?
Moisture in Calgary? That's odd. I remember smiling and chapped lips bleeding.
Madam Speaker, I too would like to wish everybody in this House a Merry Christmas, a Happy Hanukkah, and a Happy Holidays, and a Happy New Year. And I also hope that the Conservatives come back willing to work in the new year. But, Mr. Speaker, Conservatives continue to take farmers for granted. Not only do they vote against Canadian farmers, they've also abandoned Ukrainian farmers, Madam Speaker. Ukraine is the breadbasket of the world, Madam Speaker, and time again, they've been given the opportunity to vote for the Canada-Ukraine Free Trade Agreement, and disappointingly, they voted against it every single time.
Honourable member for Thornhill.
Speaker, we're ready to fight for Canadians every single day in this House, despite them not wanting to. And it turns out that Santa's not the only one flying around the world this Christmas. He's got some serious competition from the Environment Minister. Except for the minister doesn't fly a sleigh. He flies on a private jet. From Beijing to Dubai, he burns fuel and taxpayer dollars just to rub elbows with dictators and pop stars. He emits more carbon in one flight than most Canadians do in a whole year, while telling Canadians to pay more carbon taxes. The more he flies around, the higher the tax goes. So will he park the hypocrisy and finally axe the tax?
I don't know where Pierre is today. I don't see him.
Of hypocrisy, Madam Speaker. We know what the Conservatives wanted to give Canadians for Christmas, and that's cuts to the vital programs and services that they care for. In fact, just last week, they voted against $10 a day childcare. They voted against dental care for seniors and for children. They voted against Operation Unifier, which is an important NATO mission to Ukraine. And in fact, when they refer to Ukraine as a foreign land, they forget that the country that is invading them is Russia, which is a border of Canada as well, and we want to protect our sovereignty here at home. That's what they would give to Canadians.
Yeah.
The Honourable Member from Montmagny-Lisle, Kamouraska, Rivière-du-Loup. Madam Speaker, it's nearly Christmas, and too many families are actually dreading their holiday dinner because prices are just too high. Parents will have to choose between feeding their kids or putting gifts under the tree. And it's upsetting, and it's the result of 8 years of this government's policies with their Bloc Québécois allies who want to radically increase the carbon tax. Will the Prime Minister finally listen to our demand that they axe the tax so that Quebecers can enjoy their holidays?
The honourable member for...
Yeah, Lanceman's the 2IC of question period, if you ask me.
Oh, sorry, the honourable...
Dabs.
Secretary for Natural Resources.
Dabs.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. While the Conservative Party While the Conservative Party tries to let our planet burn, we will be protecting our communities. While the member for Kelowna Lake Country lets our planet burn, we saw in her own constituency that homes were being lost to forest fires. If my colleague really cares about affordability, he will protect communities from natural disasters. The Conservatives don't care about these disasters. We will protect communities. The Honourable Member. Madam Speaker, I was talking about Christmas and kids' Christmas. Now, in my riding, the Moisson Kamouraska Food Bank is doing extraordinary work, but there's more and more demand. It's up 37% since 2019, and 25% of people who come to the organization have jobs, low-income jobs. After 8 years of this Prime Minister, we can't count on the government or the Bloc to help people. Voting for the Bloc Québécois has steep price. Will the Prime Minister finally listen to our common sense plan and eliminate taxes so that Quebecers can finally have enough to eat? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm very happy to hear my colleagues speak about Moisson Kamouraska. I wonder what Moisson Kamouraska thinks about the Conservatives who stand against the Canada Child Benefit, which reduces child poverty by 40% in all ridings every month, including in my opposition colleagues' riding. What does Moisson Kamouraska think about the fact that this opposition stands against low-cost, quality child care, which reduces gender equality and
I enjoy the bag sitting in the chair all by itself. It's kind of representative.
Madam Speaker, the federal government is picking a fight in the area of dental care.
Well, her dress is
Quebec
psychedelic on camera.
Expand its scope, and Ottawa knows that very well. But Quebec wanted to do so under the RAMQ public plan. But the Liberals and NDP instead decided to choose a private company, Sun Life Insurance, instead of the public plan.
I agree.
Our left-of-center parties just aren't the same as they used to be. We could simply have had an agreement with Quebec that would have offered better dental care coverage in Quebec. Why are the Liberals and NDP favoring the private sector in healthcare?
What's that?
Minister of Health.
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente et Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Oh, he's missing his flair, though.
It's very clear that the one
He forgot his flair.
The Bloc Québécois. Our party,
The jacket
our
has enough flair for everything.
Solutions.
To restart because we can't hear him because I know you all love his jacket and it looks great on him.
I'm going to try to turn down the brightness.
He's going out this year in style and it's lovely. But I just want to remind members we need to hear what the Honourable Minister has to say. The Honourable Minister.
Joyce.
Yes, happy holidays, Madam Speaker. It's very clear that it is the Bloc Québécois that's picking fights, whereas we are looking for solutions to ensure that everyone throughout the country can access dental care. I had good conversations with the Minister of Health, Minister Dubé in Quebec, and I am certain that we can find a productive solution to ensure that dental care is available everywhere. The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean, we're not picking fights, Madam Speaker. We are instead trying to protect our areas of jurisdiction because that's what it takes to protect our capacity as a nation to make different choices. Quebec wanted better public coverage of dental care, but instead we're going to have more private intervention in the healthcare sector thanks to the Liberals and the NDP. And this is not just any old insurance company. Sun Life left Quebec in 1978 when they were asked to work in French under Bill 101. Why not respect the will of Quebec? Agree and improve our public healthcare system.
I agree.
The
The dress is
Health.
magnetizing me.
Madam Speaker, there's good news. Dental care will be available for everyone throughout
Merry
the country.
Christmas!
Quebecers, Canadians, that's good news. And I wonder why the Bloc Québécois is upset about it. It's really good news for everyone. Yes, there are still details to be refined, and we will speak about that with Quebec. to ensure that we reach the right result, but our goal is to improve the quality of health throughout the country.
Westminster Burnaby.
The dental, the way I've read it, the tea leaves, political foolishness, is that they're going to make this an election. It's going to be an election. They're going to try to pivot this on the election. I predict 2024 November, normal time, they'll have an election, and it'll be getting dental for everybody, whereas the Conservatives will be axed to tax. Oh, damn it! Oops. And it's definitely going to be. I got that. Going to be most likely this year. Every pundit has said the same thing. I'm going to bring it back. Every pundit has said the same thing, that they think that the Liberals will tie their election with the 2024 election in the States, and everyone's assuming it's going to go a little bit crazy. It's going to get nuts in the States this next election cycle, and it hasn't started. So, yeah, that's what I'm just the tea leaves. I don't know nothing. But it is going to be 70 and above by March, I believe, according to the paperwork. So to me, it looks like this is going to be the election excuse. It's going to be axe to tax versus the dental plan. Unless the Conservatives say we agree with the plan also, then that'll moot that point. Let's watch.
To ensure that we reach the right result, but our goal is to improve the quality of health throughout the country.
Westminster Burnaby.
Oh yeah, Canada, they're going to get crazy. The protests are going to probably come out funded.
And here's what we exceeded in fighting for in this session: anti-scab legislation to empower workers to fight for better wages and working conditions. For Indigenous, buy Indigenous housing to build suitable, affordable homes for First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. National child care and dental care, putting thousands of dollars back in the pockets of Canadians. While the Conservatives vote to gut and cut these services, New Democrats are delivering results, and we'll keep fighting in the new year. But why does this government always wait for the NDP to force them to deliver?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Look, we are very proud of the record that we have delivering $10 a day child care for families across this country, delivering dental care for low and moderate income children and seniors throughout this country, when we are delivering a sustainable future for Canadians across this country. Madam Speaker, this government is here every day fighting for Canadians, and we are happy to work with any party in this House that wants to support Canadian families, Canadian workers, and the future of this country. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The honourable member for New Westminster Burnaby.
Thanks to the NDP, Quebecers and Canadians are seeing concrete results: funding for social housing, anti-scab legislation, dental care for millions of Canadians and Quebecers, consumer protections. Just in Quebec alone, nearly 50% of the population will benefit from the NDP's dental insurance. And while Conservatives try to cut services, the NDP is delivering. We know that if we weren't pushing them, the Liberals would drag their feet. Why do the Liberals always wait for the NDP to push them before delivering the help that people need? The Honourable Minister of Health. Thank you, Madam Speaker. And this is why it's so important to work together. To not always simply be attacking, criticizing, and making noise. I really appreciate it when parties present solutions, because this is a difficult time the world over, and it's a good time to work together and find solutions like dental care and other results that this government has brought in for all Canadians. The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-Deschamps-Lévis. Madam Speaker, as Moisson Quebec has pointed out, the face of poverty has changed. 30% of people who go to food banks in the Greater Quebec City area have a job. There are more and more students, new arrivals, and seniors. That's the legacy of this Liberal government and its allies in the Bloc Québécois, who want to radically, as I'll remind you, increase the carbon tax, which is making the prices of everything go up. Will this Prime Minister finally hear reason and give up on his inflationary taxes once and for all?
Sink the tank, isn't that a AC/DC song?
Sink the tank. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yes, we know that this is a difficult time and many Canadians are struggling to make ends meet. It's especially disappointing, with that in mind, that last Friday the Conservatives voted against measures like, for example, the strategy for a school lunch program. We know that children learn better when they have had a good meal. Last week, the Conservatives showed their true colors by voting against that motion.
MP Julian, he has said he won't be running in the next election, which is pretty good, Richard Avery, because if you've looked at the polling in his riding, it doesn't look very good in his riding. It's not as dire as it would be for the Liberals, but in BC, so he's most likely isn't going to be. Well, no, he isn't. He said he isn't running, and someone said this lady. Daria, good song too, Daria. Gould is going to have a pension for life, so she doesn't need to work if she doesn't get elected. It looks like, her riding is flipped. I believe her riding has flipped to be very heavily conservative, but yeah, she has a pension for life. The beauty about getting elected twice into Parliament, you get that thing. And welcome everybody, and enjoy. Let's listen to that. So
The honourable member. I'd like to know what my colleague thinks about our food banks that can barely keep up with demand. For example, La Boucherie Généreuse in Quebec City is preparing twice as many food baskets compared to 2 years ago. That food bank is making miracles, but they still don't know how they're going to manage to get through the next few months. That's the result of the Bloc Liberal coalition. If you vote for the Bloc Québécois, you'll pay a steep price. Will this Prime Minister finally listen and ask the tax to enable families to finally have enough to eat, especially at Christmas, Madam Speaker? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for the question. And I'm glad she also mentioned La Boucherie Généreuse in Quebec City, an organization that I know very well, and which is also wondering how the Conservatives can stand against the Canada Child Benefit, which every month reduces child poverty by 40% in the Quebec City region, and which helps almost 400,000 children throughout the country. How can the Conservatives really say that they care about poverty when they're actually voting against what Moisson Kamouraska, La Boucherie Généreuse, and organizations like them are trying to reduce child poverty?
Madam Speaker, yesterday, Empire Foods, one of Canada's largest grocers, stated that its suppliers were still passing along price increases above the rate of inflation. As costs go up for Canadian farmers and food processors, they have a choice to make: increase prices or go out of business. After 8 years, Canadians have a bad taste of what's in store. When you tax the farmer more and tax the trucker more, Canadians pay more. When will this Prime Minister pull his head out of the sand and acknowledge this carbon tax is the root of food inflation in Canada?
Yeah, bravo! The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Quite the statement from the member opposite, who in the past has voted to not go ahead with tax cuts for the middle class, who's voted against the Canada Child Benefit. Just a few days ago, they voted against more homes being built, Madam Speaker. They voted against, in fact, shelter spaces for women and children who are trying to escape domestic violence. It is true, of course, that Canadians are going through a difficult time. We need to continue to be there for them with supports. The Canada Child Benefit I mentioned, the Canada Dental Benefit, daycare support services, all of that is there, and we'll continue that support, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member of Calgary Centre.
We voted 134 times last week to show this government they had a lack of confidence from the Canadian people. But Canadians are responding to food inflation in two ways, Madam Speaker: buying less nutritious food and lining up for food banks. Reliance on food banks is at all-time highs. Worst to come, this NDP Liberal coalition is committed to quadrupling the carbon tax on Canadian farmers.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Again, there's a lot of individuals who seem to want to contribute, and it's not time to contribute. So I'm going to get.
Pierre isn't here. I believe he has a statement. We're going to have that after, or I'm going to put it up after the. Hey, there's Cooper. I see MP Cooper. In the house. But we're going to put that. I'm going to put it directly up. He has to have done an announcement. The one thing, the reason why I'm more so back the Conservative Pierre Poilievre, especially now, the Conservatives, right at this point in our time, it's not all, I'm not conservative no matter what, is their work ethic seems to be a lot better. And Pierre, I just have faith that he didn't take the day off on the last day. He's doing something. I just don't know what. I'm not on his email list. They don't give me any heads up. I just have to search on my own. And what is it called? The chances of having a election in 2024, I keep saying this, are really, really high. It's the economy. It looks like it's going to slowly dip. White collar positions are the ones that are under fire right now due to AI and computer. It's actually attacking degreed jobs because of its reliability of AI has really increased. So we're going to be seeing, it looks like, white collar jobs, where blue collar jobs are rising, and predominantly that's basically been an NDP Conservative area, but the NDP have gone very left, and so the blue collar is basically in the camp of Conservative at the moment, and they're about to get a rise. So just because of that most likely we'll have an election. And every single pundit, I keep saying this, I'm going to repeat this last time, is every single pundit I have heard that is in the know, that gets paid and all that stuff by the Liberal side, or just to speak on it, has said the same thing, that the Liberals tying their election with the election in the States is most likely going to happen. If you remember the last election, it was tied, the Canadian election was tied directly to the climate thing that was happening in New York. Greta Thunberg, she even came here and did a little bit of a tour salvo for the Liberals' cause, while the Conservatives fought it and made fun of a handicapped girl, which didn't fly, obviously. They won the election. So this time it looks like they're gonna use a similar project and tie it to the States. So the Conservatives have to, separate themselves from the Americans. That's my opinion. Ed the Sock was great. Ed the Sock, he was always pissed off, wasn't he? Ed the Sock. Krypton Maria, the food banks will be low during Christmas. People donate January. They get credit card bills, and they don't feel so generous. Yeah, January, February, and have you noticed there's no real holidays January, February for 2 months. It's basically like keep your nose to the grindstone months and pay for your forgiveness. Who cares about Greta? The left does. She was used as a mascot, and people played into her hands by initially making fun of the teenage girl. It didn't fly with a lot of the educated class, and though it did, with the blue collar people, we all laughed. But it didn't with the others. And now we see, Greta's just her wave has maybe crested a bit. I want advice from a high school dropout. Well, if the education system, she was used and used to great effect. This election, I believe, is about to come on. Now let's listen to the politics. Stupid people have something to say. Or was it a political move? Sometimes I say. I believe it was a political move. Greta Thunberg was completely placed by the left as a mascot of sorts, and someone you couldn't make fun of, and it was totally intentional because she was, she has some issues. So making fun of her makes you look like an asshole, and it did. It just totally did. It made people look like assholes for making fun of someone, a young teenage vulnerable person, and though it wasn't directly climate change, it washed, in my opinion. And that's why the Liberals, part of the reason why the Liberals won, they won those right-leaning people. Anyway, remember, Canada has 2/3 of the time, 2 out of every 3 years in Canada has been ruled by Liberals, and the bureaucrats are all Liberal-leaning, and then the majority of people who vote, no matter what, blue-collar people talk a lot about politics, but they vote less on majority. Working class people, which would be below the middle class, I call working class people, the guys that, the lowest guys on the construction site and stuff like that, and the janitors and the good people of the world, farmers and stuff, that they by far are having it worse. So let's vote the least. By far vote the least. So, the higher education, the higher the voting percentages, according to every study that's been done in the Western world for Greta is a Soros grant. Yeah, no doubt. She was placed. Her family, Greta's family was in the music or they were fame industry, whatever. Actors. Big time, get her facts straight. She's definitely she was placed there, as a mascot. Nothing. I don't see anything wrong with that personally, except as long as you recognize it. Yeah, I think Greta has. She served a very good purpose, and I think the wave has crested her thing. She's still always going to be a little bit of a force, it seems, but not the way it was to change elections. Now, this election coming up. Most likely, as every single pundit said, they're going to tie it. They're going to try to tie, I know I'm repeating it, they said I wouldn't, Pierre Poilievre to American politics and American-style things. Okay, let's listen to someone who makes sense.
The honourable member to repeat his question.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We voted 134 times last week to throw this government out in confidence measures. Yes. Canadians are responding to food inflation in 2 ways: buying less nutritious food or lining up at food banks. Reliance on food banks is at record highs. Worst to come, this NDP Liberal coalition is committed to quadrupling the cost on carbon tax on Canadian farmers. That means that those who can afford it the least will be punished the most. It's obvious this Prime Minister is not worth the cost. There are 2 options here. Will the government exempt Canadian farmers from the carbon tax, or should Canada import more non-taxed foreign food?
Well done. Parliamentary Secretary, the Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I'd just like to point out that stunt, that overnight filibuster that the member pointed out, cost taxpayers $2 million. So as he preaches about fiscal responsibility, it's a little bit tough to stomach. Madam Speaker, the food report that he references actually said explicitly, and let me quote, "It is misleading to suggest that carbon pricing policies are affecting food prices." Moreover, Mr. Speaker, Trevor Thome said last week, if we got rid of the carbon tax and rebate, then this would harm a much larger fraction of lower and middle income households than it would higher income households. Madam Speaker, the Conservatives are making it very clear who they're standing for. It's big oil and execs and the wealthiest Canadians.
The honourable member Sherwood Parkford, Saskatchewan.
Twas the night before Christmas when the members across doubled down on their plan to keep raising the cost. They set out to do it by taxing the carbon on the hardworking people who do all the farming. This dastardly plan to make our farmers poor was almost disrupted by C-234, but the time is coming for a bigger course correction when Conservatives bring home the carbon tax election. After 8 years, we've gone from feasting to scrap. So for Christmas, will they finally axe the tax?
L'honorable secrétaire parlementaire pour le ministre de l'Agriculture et de l'Agroalimentaire.
Mr. Speaker, I want to congratulate him on the great performance, but I'm going to remind him that grain farmers are, every time they come to Ottawa, they ask for new markets. And the Conservatives had a choice last week. They had a choice to support grain farmers and support the Agricultural Bureau in Manila to support the Indo-Pacific strategy. They voted against it. They had a choice, and they voted against this. On this side of the House, we don't not only walk the walk, but we support our farmers.
That's right.
Again, I just want to remind members that if they don't have the floor, they shouldn't be yelling out or heckling or anything. The Honourable Member for Sherwood Parkford, Saskatchewan.
Madam Speaker, farmers do not like their carbon tax plan. They do not like their pipeline ban. They do not like it here or there. They do not think it's just or fair. It taxes the food the farmer grows. It taxes the tractor when he mows. It taxes the food as it gets trucked. It taxes the people as they get squeezed. Liberal policies are breaking our backs. So when will they finally axe the tax?
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, I think what Dr. Zeus is actually concerned about is food security. And food security is actually relevant to that member and the people that he represents in Alberta. Because they know, those good Ukrainian Canadians in Alberta know, that Ukraine represents the breadbasket of the world. But you know it's not just Ukrainian Canadians that are disappointed in that member in his caucus. It's Polish Canadians, it's Baltic Canadians, it's every Eastern European person who stands against the authoritarianism of Vladimir Putin. That member has been noted for his combating communist authoritarianism. Where was he last week when we voted on that?
Order. L'honorable député de Drummond.
The Honourable Member for Drummond. We now know how the Google money is going to be split up. Out of $100 million in the agreement, $30 million will be used for electronic media, $7 million for CBC, and the rest for print media. That is not going to fix the media crisis. Not for newspaper, not for TV or radio, not at all. And $7 million for CBC? Really? Every dollar counts and could help to save a local or regional newspaper or radio station. So will the Minister of Heritage ask CBC to not reach into that too small cookie jar?
Climate change?
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I appreciate my colleague's question. Last month, we announced a historic agreement with Google. It will be paying our journalists for their important work. That agreement will enable newsrooms to continue producing local content for their communities. We know that all media are in a crisis, and we are doing our part so they can continue informing Canadians throughout the country. The Honourable Member.
Holland is the, Holland is the tulip capital. They had the tulip plunge and greenhouses and stuff like that. But breadbasket, Ukraine is the breadbasket because the nutrient soil in the flat plains. It's been the breadbasket of Europe for the last century, and it's been called that for the last century. And then under communism, Holodomor, the whole the whole Soviet revolution was based off of the food. See, what happened was a very agrarian society, and it was low production value, except high production value in Ukraine. And so the Soviets, what they wanted to do was get the people to the cities out of these low production agrarian towns. And to do that, they needed to, and to build industry, they needed to feed them. So Holodomor, which not many people even know about, was basically they took all of the farming food. They first of all made collective farms. So they kicked off the farmers who owned the land, and they made these nice collectives, so no one really owned the land. And then the Soviets took all the grains and took the majority of the grains to even reseed years over years, and it's actually the largest amount of people who starved to death in the world. The largest genocide that's ever happened that no one really knows about. So the revolution and the industrial base building of the Soviets was done off of the breadbasket, fed, because once the people are fed, then they can do other things. So that's that. The actual fact, and the people saying, well, and then now we're going to go Crimea. The Tartars are the people who were the original inhabitants. And under the Soviets, when they went into Crimea, they moved all the people to the Ural Mountains, which is far away, and isolated mountains, beautiful, but isolated. And only 12% of the people, they ended up moving back after the Soviets fell. And only 12% are now back. Most of them died. They shipped them over on this, basically this pilgrimage. It has a name to it, but it's like pilgrimage of sorrow. It was awful, by gunpoint, And those are the people who originally, they only are now about 12% of Crimea because, they got wiped out by the Soviets. They moved back. And so people thinking that, Ukraine is Soviet and they like each other, they just, you don't know enough about the histories. So let's listen to someone who knows what the hell they're talking about.
Well, if the government were able to promise that the $7 million would enable Radio-Canada to rehire the 600 people laid off, we might reconsider. But $7 million, while it may be just a drop in the ocean for public media, it's a colossal amount for our small local media. We could easily recuperate $7 million by canceling Christmas bonuses for the Friends of Catherine Tate or 1 or 2 trips to Australia. Will the government guarantee that CBC will not try to get money from the fund? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thanks again, Madam Speaker. We know that the Conservatives do not value journalists' work, but that's not the case for us. More than 500 newsrooms have had to close over the last 10 years. And that is why we brought in the Online News Act in order to create a fairer environment for journalists versus the web giants. We are at the final stage of C18. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Saskatoon West.
Madam Speaker, after 8 years, the NDP Liberal government has driven up the cost of food for everyone. Canadians know that when you slap a carbon tax on a farmer and then a trucker, these added costs are going to be paid by consumers. Anthony, a dairy farmer in Saskatoon, is currently paying $55,000 every year in carbon tax. It is clear for dairy farmers that this Prime Minister is just not worth the cost. Does the Prime Minister want Anthony to raise prices on consumers, or does he want him to cut production so Canadians are forced to buy dairy from polluting foreign countries?
Parlementaire pour le ministre de l'Agriculture et de l'Agroalimentaire.
Madam Speaker, it is Christmas season, and I actually want to thank all the farmers who are providing food for Canadians. But the honourable member is not telling his constituent and his dairy farmers that last week he had a choice. He had a choice to support dairy farmers and all supply managed sector, and he voted against dairy farmers. He voted against the poultry sector. He voted against the turkey sector. Madam Speaker, the Conservatives love to talk, but when it actually comes to supporting dairy farmers and the supply managed sector, they're nowhere to be found.
That's right.
The honourable member for Saskatoon West.
Madam Speaker, Canadians do not have confidence in this government, and I'm proud to say that our party voted non-confidence in this government 135 times. Madam Speaker, it gets worse. Instead of supporting Bill C-234 to reduce the cost of food by removing the carbon tax on farmers, this NDP Liberal government is going to quadruple the carbon tax. This will balloon Anthony's carbon tax bill from $55,000 to $220,000 every year. This is guaranteed to increase the price of dairy for Canadian consumers. Madam Speaker, what does the Prime Minister want Anthony to do? To raise prices or cut production and force Canadians to import dairy from polluting foreign farms?
Madam Speaker, I want to thank my honourable colleague for his question. I see the enthusiasm they have on a particular bill on the other side. I don't hear them as loud for supporting C-282, a bill that we unanimously supported on this side of the House that supports supply managed. Where is that member's support for C-282 that's on the other side of the House, which supply managed sector dairy farmers, turkey farmers, the egg farmers, and the chicken farmers are all asking us to support? Where is that member in that party's caucus support for C-282?
The honourable member for Portage-Elister.
Madam Speaker, this Prime Minister's carbon tax is taking direct aim at Canadian farmers and hitting our grocery prices. This Liberal government doesn't know Jack, who's a grain farmer from southern Manitoba, who's paying $6,000 in carbon taxes on his most recent bill. And when this Liberal government quadruples their punishing carbon tax, he'll be paying $24,000 in a single month. How will the Prime Minister advise that Jack pays that $24,000? Will he be raising prices on Canadians, or should Jack cut back on production, or should Canadians be forced to import more polluted foreign food from foreign farms.
Honourable Minister.
Portage Lisgar should be embarrassed and he should be ashamed of himself. Last weekend, during the temper tantrum, he voted against Prairie's Can, an initiative, an organization that has invested millions of dollars in Portage Lisgar. He voted against them. He voted against the Human Rights Museum, Canada's only a major national museum in Western Canada. He voted against Ukrainian immigrant settlement services in Manitoba. He should be ashamed.
The honourable member for Portage Lisgar.
Madam Speaker, I am so proud and my constituents are extremely happy that I voted non-confidence against this government 135 times last week. And it's become clear after 8 years that this Prime Minister is simply not worth the cost. Certainly not to Jim in my riding, who's paying $5,000 a month to heat his poultry barn, and this NDP Liberal coalition is planning on quadrupling that, costing him $20,000 a month. So how do they expect Jim to pay that $20,000 a month? Is he going to cut back on production, raise prices for Canadians, or are we going to be forced to import food from more polluting foreign farms?
Yeah. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As members of Parliament, we are representatives of the constituents in our ridings, and they send us to Ottawa with one very important job, and that's to vote on government policies and programs.
Thank you.
Last week, the Conservatives voted on over 120 items that Canadians depend on. And that member and all the members of the Conservative Party voted against farmers. They voted against supporting supply-managed sectors like poultry, dairy, egg, and turkey. And they need to stand accountable for the fact that they stand against farmers and they stand against our agricultural sector. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Yeah,
they voted against turkey.
I'm not sure
Cut
if
the
people are
turkey.
forgetting where they are, but the honourable for North Island, Powell River.
Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, everyone deserves to know that they'll make it home safely at the end of the day. Weather stations in North Island Powell River are vital to this, but poor upkeep and underfunding by both the Liberals and Conservative governments have left our weather stations in ruins. We need real action now to fix this problem. Will the government make sure these weather stations are working or continue to neglect the maintenance of infrastructure people rely on for safety?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary of the Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I really appreciate the advocacy from the member opposite, who I know recognizes that in modern times, the incidences of extreme weather events happen more frequently because of climate change, and we have an obligation to ensure that the data and the reporting from those weather stations is up to date and fully functional. And that has a direct impact on the safety of our neighbors, particularly during the winter months and particularly when folks are traveling. So I sincerely appreciate the question from the member, and I'd be happy to touch base after question period with the member to discuss how we can make sure that Canadians stay safe over the holidays.
I worked on a campaign, and so part of my area AOR, I had at one point Crypto I'm speaking to, because she said, Victoria votes like sheep. It's going to be NDP or Liberal. So in the Victoria east coast of Van Island, AOR, Area of Responsibility, there are very many retired Ontarians. It's a majority of people, wealthy, retired, predominantly English, British Columbia, the people who ran the country in the last generation, in the 60s, 70s, 80s, moved to British Columbia as a retirement place, as the climate. And I'm not trying to disparage. It just, this is the truth of the demographics and a lot. It's changed. There's a lot of Asians now, but what I could tell, there was so many people who were from Ontario who moved to British Columbia, especially the island, as a retirement. It was cheaper. Beautiful climate, and they were all staunch Liberal supporters. They were a CEO of this company. They were all highly educated. Many of them were highly educated and retired and moved to British Columbia. And so they're almost locked in Liberal voters. And this is where I agree with Crypta. It's very left-leaning, because they're living in the bubble of the time of their generation, and it's it hasn't changed in a while. Now there's a lot of Asians that moved in there, and they're also left-leaning, it's very hard to change. Though there has been shifts in BC, which makes that's a huge deal, because when I did it, there was majority of the people were retired people from Ontario, and they were all, I swear to God, all longtime Liberal supporters. It's shifting. Nano says it's not shifting. Well, it looks like there's some shifting going on, Nano said, is where I'm getting. And 338, Alberta, it's always the same. Same thing is happening. Alberta's was always been conservative. It's Manitoba is shifting. Another one that's an odd shift is like Prince Edward Island is going conservative, which one was it's like a bastion of Liberals. New Brunswick's a 50-50. Same with Nova Scotia's going conservative. Quebec is the only place where the Liberals still have more seats than any other party, and that's eroding. But basically, back to the BC thing, there is a shift. But the NDP provincial government has been under, though there was some backlash, or I don't know, there were some reports on the premier about his meetings and stuff like that. No one seems to care. But the NDP provincial government of BC is getting support, so that's probably holding up the federal support, in my opinion. I don't know. More Cryptomaria says more country blue-collar communities. I can see a few places on the island going conservative. Comox, Courtney, yeah, that's right. And it is. It's getting to the point. It's going very, very strong. Newfoundland is going conservative, which very odd. Okay, let's listen to them. And I'm gonna have Pierre. He must be speaking somewhere. Guaranteed. I just think so. So let's listen to the rest of question period. And thanks for commenting, liking, and.
James Bay.
In 2019, I put forward a motion for a national suicide prevention strategy, and it received all-party support. But since that time, the Liberals have broken their promise to deliver the Canada mental health transfer to the provinces. But I am really concerned that this past week, the Conservative Party voted against the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, as well as voting against clean water on reserves. That would have a huge impact in my region. So we now know the Conservative leader would break any promise on mental health. But I want to know, will the Liberals finally commit to implementing the full national suicide prevention strategy so that people are not playing political games on such important issues as mental health and suicide prevention?
L'honorable secrétaire parlementaire.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
It is so important question. In fact, I totally agree with him. On a commencé cette stratégie.
We started that strategy. We continued the strategy by implementing on November 30th the 988 line, the suicide prevention hotline, which has been very successful so far. The line received calls in its first hours. People are well trained and ready to help Canadians in their.
Oh yeah, now I understand what you're saying, Sean. It is same. He said same thing is happening in Alberta. Sean McDonald. There's a lot of Ontario people, and they're left-leaning, liberal left-leaning, and the Conservative. That's where the fact that there was even an NDP government under Notley, it didn't do very well. There was quite a few scandals and lingering doubts. So I don't see them getting back into power, though they're a force. And as Sean McDonald says, something has happened in Alberta. The shift of Ontarians going there, moving there, has changed their politics from staunch conservative to, there is some left-leaning there. Though it seems to be like the Wild Rose Party, Smith, Premier Smith, sorry, I almost forgot her name. Premier Smith, she has a good support base, and she's doing fairly well. She's liked. I don't see her losing any elections anytime soon. She does all the right things for Alberta, I believe. Yes, suicide goes against May. That's They don't need to worry about it. There's the homeless problem helps me.
Madam Speaker, our government is unwavering in our support for Ukraine, but there are troubling signs internationally and in this House. This week, President Zelensky urged American politicians not to succumb to far-right, MAGA-inspired plans to abandon Ukraine. Unfortunately, we are fighting the same fight here in Canada, with Conservatives voting against the Free Trade Agreement, voting against Operation Unifier, and against military aid for Ukraine. This week, Vladimir Putin said that Western support for Ukraine is waning and that he will win the war. The situation is dire for all of us. Can the Parliamentary Secretary share with Canadians what we're doing to support the Ukrainian people in their fight for their own survival, for global security, and for Canada's security?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you to the member for Etobicoke Centre for his tireless advocacy. Earlier this week, President Biden urged Republicans not to give Vladimir Putin an early Christmas gift and abandon Ukraine. Well, it looks like Christmas came early for the mega-inspired Conservatives right here in Canada. While they're busy voting against trade, against Ukraine, we will not waver. At the International Trade Committee, we heard directly from industry groups, the UCC, and the Ambassador of Ukraine, who supports this modernized trade agreement. I hope our colleagues across the way will take some time over the holidays to reflect, come to their senses, and support this trade agreement with Ukraine.
Honourable Member for Langley-Aldergrove.
Rocky Ridge Turkey Farm in Langley just received their heating bill, $3,000, and shockingly, a quarter of it is carbon tax. And when it quadruples, Farmer Steve's heating bill is going to be 60% carbon tax. It's ridiculous. After 8 years of this NDP Liberal government, it is clear that the Prime Minister is just not worth the cost. So what's his advice to Farmer Steve? Is it to raise prices on Canadians, or is it to cut production so that Canadians are forced to import food from foreign community farms?
Okay, I disagree vehemently nicely with the. You can't blame landlords; they have no choice but to raise rent. Okay, when you bought your property at $100,000, say, and now it's worth $3 million. And you're raising rent because the property values have gone up. That's basically what's happened. Most landlords didn't buy their property during the boom, but they've raised their prices with the pricings of going up. So they, like I said, once again, they paid $100,000 for a 25-unit building, and they're renting it out as if they bought it last year and pocketing that. And you can't blame a business owner for charging market value. That's where I agree with you. I disagree with you that the gouging is acceptable, but it's a business, right? So it's not they're not social engineers, they're not politicians, they're not trying to get elected, they're trying to make money. So that part, yeah, okay, I guess agree. But as a whole, the landlords are just what they've always been. People have believed, remember, 2 generations ago, being a landlord, or what they used to call rent seeker, was a slur. That's what if you wanted to, you said you called them a rent seeker before you punched them in the face. That was the case. Now we've had 2 generations later where people, we have like the youth generation, believe the pinnacle of life is being a landlord. What do they call it? Passive income. So they do nothing and get income. There's actual belief in that's what the pinnacle. And I think we flipped it on our head to the point where people are like, you can't blame them. Yeah, you can blame them. They're a fucking scumbag. They're charging way more just because they can. But it's legal and there's nothing against them, and I don't believe in retribution for someone to doing that. But that's what's happening. It's everyone's basically piled up on one industry to make their money, and it's gotten to the point where it's actually disgusting, where people are dying on the street because people want to make more money on only one industry. Most investment isn't going into mining, which all the liberals talk about, but where are they putting their investments? Into housing, into stuff like that, to make more money out of that. And then they're calling for more investment in housing. It shouldn't be investors, and it should be homeowners. And then this is my thing as landlords. And like I said, they're not moral people. They're trying to make money, and there's nothing wrong with that, my opinion. And landlords has been a growing thing as industry left. People didn't see any place where to invest their money when they had it, and this is my opinion, it's gone so far off the rails. It's been happening for so long, and no one knows how to correct course. Everyone still is in the belief that being a rent seeker is not a slur. So that's my rant. It's a dumb kid. He keeps packing his boat and parking his boat in your spot. Ooh. I don't know what that just sounds good, though. I'm the dumb kid.
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister for Agriculture and Agri-Food.
Don't rock the boat too
I want to thank
much.
the turkey farmers who are doing an amazing job of providing turkeys for all of us during Christmas. But the one thing that the entire supply managed sector is asking of us is to support C-282. And I know that caucus is split, but our caucus is unified in terms of supporting our dairy farmers, our turkey farmers, our egg farmers, our chicken farmers. Where's that member support and where's that caucus support for Bill C-282 in the other chamber?
The honourable member for Langley-Alder Grove.
Well, where's the support from the Liberals for Common Sense Bill C-234, which they rejected? A common sense solution to tackling food inflation. Why did this Prime Minister reject supporting Canadian farmers and the citizens who rely on them for a good, safe, affordable food supply?
The honourable minister.
What I want for Christmas is for that member of the Justice Committee and his colleagues to end their antics and stop playing with people's lives. I'm talking about David and Joyce Milgaard's law. That's a law that will change the way we address wrongful convictions and end systemic discrimination. Reversing a wrongful conviction should never be a partisan matter. But filibusters by that member and his colleagues at the committee has made it exactly that. These delays mean that potentially wrongfully convicted people, like Indigenous people and Black people languishing in our prisons, will just languish a little longer. That's reprehensible behavior, Madam Speaker, and that needs to be corrected immediately.
The honourable member for Edmonton West.
Madam Speaker, places of worship in Edmonton have always helped with food hampers for those in need, regardless of their faith. Now, after 8 years of this NDP Liberal government, they are seeing record increases of those seeking help. So what's the government's solution? More carbon taxes. One church alone in my riding is facing a bill of $30,000 in carbon taxes this year alone. Government's probably not aware, but they can't pass those costs on to their congregants. So when will this government axe the tax so places of faith can have more to give to families in need?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Well, Madam Speaker, I think it's essential that we be straight with people who are going through difficult times, that those difficult times are felt all over the world. And the fact that Canada is doing better than just about any other country in the world is cold comfort to people who are suffering. But what they need is solutions like dental care, so that seniors can get the dental care that they need, that 1 million children can get the dental care they need. But of course, the Conservatives voted against it. And so what they do by it's really about not taking action on climate and cutting support for vulnerable people. That's really what this is about, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Abitibi-Témiscamingue. Pardon. The Honourable Member for Beauce. Thank you, Madam Speaker. After 8 years, the costly Bloc Liberal coalition wants to drastically increase the carbon tax, which will drive up the price of all food. They are so out of touch with reality. It costs a lot to vote Bloc. 12,500 requests per month. That is the rate of food bank use in my region. According to the organization Marie Champagne of Moisson in Beauce, that's an increase of 82% over the past few years, and more than a third of these requests are for children. Will the Prime Minister follow our common sense plan to eliminate inflationary taxes and deficits so that Canadians can eat this Christmas?
L'Honorable Ministre.
The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Conservatives are constantly talking about the price on pollution. Well, there are a few things that are very clear. Pollution does exist. Climate change does exist. And carbon pricing and pollution pricing will contribute to reducing emissions. The Conservatives are no longer welcome in the Magdalene Islands, and they won't visit the Plains of Abraham either because they voted against the Plains of Abraham. They voted against they're against the Festival of Saint-Tite, but they might be able to visit Bay Saint Paul, where there was a catastrophic event, a disaster, a flood a few weeks ago that destroyed tons of businesses and homes. Can the member send his climate-denying leader to Bay St. Paul to understand that climate change does exist? The Honourable Member for Abitibi-Témiscamingue. Thank you, Madam Speaker. The federal government has one last chance before the Christmas holidays to avert a wave of small and medium enterprise bankruptcies. The government must extend the January 18th deadline for repayment of the emergency account without loss of subsidy. At a time when inflation is eating into families' Christmas shopping budgets, at a time when restaurant patronage is down by 20% and bankruptcies have risen 81% since last year, the survival of our main streets and the survival of our small local businesses is at stake. Will the federal government finally please extend the deadline to allow our SMEs to get through the winter?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Small Businesses.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The CEBA program provided unprecedented support to nearly 900,000 small businesses and helped keep them open, their doors open and their lights on. Last year, our government already extended the forgiveness qualification deadline by 1 year to the end of this year. We know that times are still tough, Madam Speaker, and that's why our government extended the full loan for another year, Madam Speaker. We are going to continue to listen to small businesses throughout this time, and we're going to continue to have their backs, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Abitibi-Témiscamingue. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, according to Statistics Canada, over 98,000 SMEs don't know whether they will have the cash to repay the emergency account or whether they will have access to the credit that they need. There are 98,000 businesses in limbo. It's not just SMEs that need reassurance before the holidays. It's hundreds of thousands of workers, too. The January 18th deadline is a sword of Damocles hanging over the heads of all of these people. Will the government postpone the deadline to reassure these people that they will not lose their jobs right after the holidays?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, that is why we are offering additional flexibilities for small businesses to repay their CEBA loans. This includes a full 1 year extension on the term loan repayment deadline, more flexibility on refinancing, and more time to access the loan forgiveness, which is both a balanced and fiscally responsible approach. We know that times are tough, which is why our government will also be cutting taxes for growing small businesses and lowering their credit card fees by up to a quarter, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for St. Albert, Edmonton.
Madam Speaker, the Liberals' billion-dollar green slush fund is mired in corruption. Tens of millions of taxpayers' dollars have been funneled to companies that board members have an interest in. And yesterday at the Industry Committee, the former chair dismissed this corruption as the normal course of business. In other words, it's business as usual. After 8 years of this NDP Liberal government, can the minister explain why corruption and self-dealing are business as usual?
Yeah, that was. I had checked out the videos on that. It was a courageous that committee.
Alleged allegations, the Department of ISED acted quickly. Minister of Innovation has already accepted the resignation of CEO and chair. We take these allegations extremely seriously, which is why we're following proper due diligence. Our government is committed to ensure that organizations which receive federal funding adhere to the highest standards of governance. We are committed to get to the bottom of these allegations. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Yeah, Cooper seems to be so highly partisan. He's all over these wastes of money. Seems like a very business-oriented minded person, and he finds, like, it seems like every week he's got another one. It almost is too many scandals, and the media, the larger legacy media, which is getting all the boost, doesn't follow it at all, and so it's like another one. You have another scandal that you're highlighting? Well, what about the last one that the media never picked up on? And I'm not trying to criticize him. It's just like, well, it kind of the whole system I am. It's like another one, and it isn't getting any traction. But MP Cooper highlights this stuff, but it needs like, I don't know. He just definitely is an outstanding MP. And what this green slush fund, it looks like the one whistleblower said 160 million, what he said, and this is just one guy of many. And now this one whistleblower guy, he said a couple things. He said $160 million, according to him, has been basically thrown out to people like insider trading baloney, at least $160 million. And then another one, that a really big thing that I thought he brought up, these non-disclosure agreements. This is a government agency, whatever. Like when they're firing people and letting people go when people are quitting and all that, if they want to get their extra money or whatever, they're making them sign these non-disclosure agreements, which I completely disagree with. Because what it does is people won't speak out about things against the law because they're worried about getting sued. They're like, well, I don't know, is that against the law? Because I don't know, I just better not say anything. So what this guy even said is that the amount of people that have like signed non-disclosure agreements that won't speak up is huge. He says, I only seen 160 million, but he said basically was like the number maybe in the billions of basically like insider trading. They're giving the money to all their friends and themselves, you know. The board, I think it was 5 members of the board had given money to companies that they had interest in. And that's just one person's angle. There's much more coming. Someone who wasn't in the room angle. Who got this? And this has been proven. Like, it's an unbelievable green slush fund. Now, it's not something that it's going to make everyone go flip out and go crazy, but it's an example of why we can't have a government handing out an elitist board group of anyone handing out cash to companies. It's just they give to themselves while the rest of the country they don't care about, right? Insider friends want to squeal on others. Oh yeah, that's right. They're all in cahoots, right? So they give them a golden handshake. They're like, well, we know you're quitting because you're very upset about this and that. But if you want to have a golden handshake as you leave, $100,000 or whatever, sign this non-disclosure agreement. Boom, 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 done. And now that's not even being looked into. That needs to be. I think that this has been such a scandal. They need to go and rip up from the government side every non-disclosure agreement, and then get these people on the board, and not to put people in jail. That's not the solution. To stop this from happening in other departments, because this is happening in one department, just like a cockroach. When you see a cockroach, there's about 5,000 other cockroaches everywhere. So you hit like this one slush fund and make it in a big hoopla. Most likely, other people that are doing this that have other government boards will do it less. And that is how you, in my idea, is how you lead. You don't need to hit every single one for retribution, and it feels good because that feels really good to get them all. Best thing is, you make a wave, and it travels faster than you can. And this is my belief is rampant with this Liberal government, and the Conservatives when they get in. They don't have their fingers deep into the bureaucracy, so they're outside looking in because they haven't run in. First of all, in 8 years they haven't been in power, and they're very adversarial to the bureaucrats. So it's going to take a while to get their fingers in to be able to change things. It's going to be a very large mess. Though the Conservative work ethic will help, in my opinion, it's required. Yes, look under the fridge. Look under the fridge. If you're talking about the Loblaws handing out freezers to the to Loblaws, this is insider trading, is the way I kind of considering it. Are some involved? Yeah, they'll be involved, but they're useless. They will not do any white collar crime. I don't have any faith in the white collar crime. They'll go away for 6 months if they've taken 1 million people's pension. It's just my only belief, and that's just my opinion. I don't know. My only belief is you can only deal with white collar crime because our system is so seesaw unbalanced. Is with get them to resign and then be happy with that. By wanting to see jail time or for crimes that you believe are 100%, it's just you're going to only stress yourself out. My opinion. I know nothing. Let's listen to those who know.
The honourable member for St. Albert Edmonton.
Madam Speaker, according to the whistleblower, more than $150 million has been misappropriated by Liberal insiders at the Green Slush Fund. And yet, incredibly, the minister continues to stand behind the board, a board that has engaged in self-dealing to the tune of tens of millions of dollars. This is scandalous. It begs the question, what does the minister know? When did he know about it? And who is he protecting?
I don't know why that froze. I'm going to repeat that because it was pretty good, but it froze. Okay, so here it is again.
The honourable member for St. Albert, Edmonton.
Madam Speaker, according to the whistleblower, more than $150 million has been misappropriated by Liberal insiders at the Green Slush Fund. And yet, incredibly, the minister continues to stand behind the board, a board that has engaged in self-dealing to the tune of tens of millions of dollars. This is scandalous. It begs the question, what does the minister know? When did he know about it? And who is he protecting?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Well, Madam Speaker, of course, the member opposite knows this agency was created 20 years ago. It operates at arm's length. And I'm not sure what the member is saying. Is he saying that if they were in government, that he would actually be interfering and managing the organization? Or is he saying that if he saw malfeasance, that he would do what we did, which is to call in immediately those to review what's occurred? Because what this is really about is them being against taking action on climate change and being beholden to a base that has MAGA values.
So again, order. The honourable member knows full well that if he has other questions, he can ask for a late show to expand on his question today.
What was that? Did you hear that outburst? Did you? I can't. That was an outburst of outburst. I think he lost his cookies. MP Cooper, listen to this. I'm going to make sure the volume's all the way up. Yes, it is. But listen to this. He outburst.
Is them being against taking action on climate change and being beholden to a base that has MAGA values.
So again, order. The honourable member knows full well that if he has other questions, he can ask for a late show to expand on his question today. The honourable member for.
Well, Cooper usually keeps his cool. He lost his cool there.
After 8 long years of this NDP Liberal government, we know that they're just not worth the cost. We have this government's billion-dollar green slush fund. And what do we have following that? Over $150 million that appears to have been criminally misappropriated. Rather than word salad explanations of, we're investigating, we can say this. There's an Auditor General investigation. There's an ethics commissioner, or there's an ethics investigation times 2. Why won't they just call in the RCMP?
The Honourable Minister. Parliamentary Secretary. Not the Honourable Minister. I got it.
Minister. Merry Christmas, Madam Speaker. I hope you have wonderful holidays. Listen, as we go away, we know that Canadians have had a hard year. We know that we've suffered with global inflation. We've had troubles with war in Ukraine and elsewhere. We've had, of course, the after effects of the pandemic and climate change. But despite that, I think Canadians can feel good about the fact that we still have the lowest net debt to GDP ratio in the G7 and that we have lifted millions of Canadians out of poverty. We have done that by investing in programs like healthcare, like dental care, like the CCB, like $10 a day childcare, like retirement security, and like investments in communities like the Jewish Centre for Greater Vancouver, all investments that the
honourable member for Egmont.
Madam Speaker, Atlantic Canada has had its fair share of challenges over the past 3 years. A deadly hurricane, natural disasters, and a global pandemic have left Atlantic Canadians wondering what the future holds. Can the Minister of Rural Development, Anacoa, outline for the people in my Egmont riding what our government is doing to help Atlantic Canada recover, rebuild, and thrive?
Well done.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I want to thank the member from Egmont, who's a strong voice for PEI and for Atlantic. Down east, we have a saying. It's called Tory times or tough times. And man, last week the Conservatives reminded us why, because they voted against funding to help us rebuild from Hurricane Fiona. They voted against funding for small businesses.
I don't care. I'm going to pause it. This MP was just classic partisan thing. I love this clip with on CTV. Vashi Capellos had her on an interview, and she said, "Oh, if the prairie provinces were to elect more Liberals, maybe they would see more tax breaks," when she was talking about the Atlantic oil carve-out of carbon tax. So she basically, unbelievable that it would actually, like, you know, and you could see, like, the host, Vashi Capellos, is like, oh, like, what did you just, like, total shock. There was like a 5-second pause kind of thing. Maybe it was not long, but it felt like it was like dun 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 dun. Oh my God! It was the perfect example of a what do they call it? A matinee soap opera. You know how they did those long drama points and then they flick back and forth each other as they stare at each other. It was one of those moments. I'm surprised they let her speak in Parliament ever, you know, within the same year after that. You know, if they didn't vet what she wrote, they're not doing their diligence, the Liberals, it is, because what she said was unbelievable. If I was a Conservative candidate, I would just have that on, like, a commercial on, like, almost repeat everywhere. You don't even need it long. Definitely a... She's not going to get elected. Where she's from, her riding, it looks like it's leaning against Liberal. So, but, you know, pension for life.
To grow and create good jobs. They voted against support for our manufacturers and our farmers, and they voted against funding to support Marine Atlantic, which is a vital service a ferry service between Newfoundland and Nova Scotia. 'Tis a season of colourful lights, Madam Speaker, but last week they showed us their true colours. Just when Harper was in charge, they continued to treat Atlantic Canada as...
The Honourable Member for Calgary Heritage.
After 8 years, Beijing-backed raiding of Canadian resources is at an all-time high. First, they got this Prime Minister to fast-track the sale of neolithium. Now they're working on a deal to buy critical minerals in the Northwest Territories through acquiring vital minerals. Yesterday, the Industry Committee passed a motion calling on the minister to invoke the Investment Canada Act to protect this critical Canadian resource. Will the minister listen to this committee and review this deal today?
That's great. Bravo. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, our government has been clear we will always welcome foreign investments and trade that encourages economic growth, innovation, and employment opportunities in Canada. We know that economic security is national security. This bill, which will amend the ICA, brings forward improvements so our government can act more quickly when required. We'll continue to ensure Canada's prosperity while acting decisively to protect our national and economic security. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The honourable member for...
Yes, the oil industry, it looks like it's got a good revitalization. Definitely got a big boom in pricing, but it's the small nuclear reactors. Richard Avery, I'm sure, is fully aware of that. The shit show of the oil industry, it's messy, it's sloppy. It's not nearly as clean transfer of fuel as electricity. You know, remember those old ladies that used to put... well, I remember one old lady, very old lady, now she's of course passed, who used to put the plugs in the electrical sockets because she didn't want the electricity to leak out. Right? Now we all laugh, but, you know, the case is the fact that it doesn't do that. And we all are fully aware of it. That's the point that's funny. It's a cleaner industry. It's the next industry. But per square inch of gasoline is very, very, very useful. And then there's plastic. Hello, Mr. Media, Boomer Media. But definitely we're going to have Pierre Poilievre up. The oil industries of everywhere is going to, it seems to be dying. It definitely is not. Okay, let's listen to them. And like I said, Pierre has to be speaking somewhere. If anyone's aware of it, I'll leave it in the comment. Let's listen to that.
Today. They need to act today. You can really see where this Prime Minister's heart lies with that non-answer. Not with Canadian resources, not with Canadians, but with his love for Beijing's basic dictatorship. The same love that put 3 other Canadian lithium companies at risk of CCP takeover, and now our only rare earth mining company. Will the minister do the right thing, put Canadians first, and invoke the Investment Canada Act today?
Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, the Investment Canada Act provides for the review of the most significant investments by non-Canadians to ensure their likely net benefit to the Canadian economy. All investments, no matter their value, are subject to a national security review under the Investment Canada Act. Therefore, the acquisitions of a Canadian company by a foreign company would be subject to a review under the ICA. Due to the confidentiality provisions of the Act, we cannot comment further on this very concern that the member had. Thank you.
The honourable for Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke.
Madam Speaker, after 8 years, Canadians know higher food prices are this NDP Liberal coalition's official policy. Bob and Pat down in Douglas just paid $170 in carbon taxes on their propane bill to dry their corn. Now, Bob and Pat cannot pass this carbon tax on to customers. They have to take the market rate. Bob and Pat absorb all the taxes. Will the Prime Minister tell Bob and Pat by how much they have to cut food production in order to stay alive?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, on behalf of military families across Canada whose loved one deployed as part of Op Unifier to help strengthen Ukraine, I am ashamed that the member opposite, coming from Pembroke, actually voted against, with every Conservative across the way, against funding for Op Unifier and military families. Our children, our family members deployed overseas to support Ukraine, and not one of them supported it. Thank you.
The honourable member Calgary Skyview.
Madam Speaker, the world has experienced its warmest year ever, with Canadians facing devastating and deadly wildfires. At COP28, Canada advocated to secure ambitious outcomes to keep the Paris Agreement goal of limiting warming to 1.5 degrees within reach. With the support of a strong and diverse Canadian delegation, the Minister of the Environment and Climate Change was proud to represent Canada at this important conference. Can the Parliamentary Secretary inform this House on the work Canada has done? Excellent question.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, the Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I'd like to thank my honourable and hardworking colleague for his question, but also for his commitment to climate action, Madam Speaker. COP28 was a remarkable meeting, Madam Speaker, where the world came together to commit to lowering our reliance on fossil fuels drastically, in fact, phasing them out, and a commitment to triple renewable energy. And at the same time, Madam Speaker, our government committed to an oil and gas emissions cap, Madam Speaker, and lowering our oil and gas emissions by 75%. We also committed to bringing forth legislation for nature protection in 2024. Madam Speaker, Canadians can continue to rely on Liberals to be champions for the environment and climate change here in Canada and abroad.
The honourable member for Nunavut.
The Liberals are putting our coast and Indigenous communities at risk. After spending $31 billion on the TMX pipeline, the Liberals are pushing almost 900,000 barrels of oil through unceded territorial waters of Pacheedaht First Nation. And now the Liberals stopped any discussions with the Pacheedaht First Nation about creating a marine safety center nearby. Why does the minister have no issue handing billions to oil and gas, but can't spend on basic protections for Indigenous communities?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Natural Resources.
Madam Speaker, reconciliation is always at the center of the work that we do, and we take it very seriously. I want to make sure that we can underline that fact. When it comes to protecting our lands and including the voices of Indigenous peoples, we take that very seriously, and it is at the center of the work that we do. I thank the member opposite for raising her concerns, but we will always be standing for a viable and strong natural resources sector that includes all voices as we move forward.
Good job. Good job.
And that brings us to the end of question period. I do want to first, before we go to point of orders, I do want to just, and before everybody leaves, I just want to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas, safe travels. Want to thank the clerks and the pages and everyone that helps us here on the Hill to make sure that it functions well and that we're able to do our work. And I, of course, want to thank the good people of Algoma, Manitoulin, Kapuskasing, and the fact that I became a grandma this morning as well. So. Again, yes, work out.
All right, so we got some point of orders, and then I'm going to go check out to see if Pierre's still.
I have a point of order. The honourable member for North Island, Powell River. Is that a point of
Speaker? And congratulations on becoming a grandmother. It's a beautiful thing. There have been consultations, and I hope that if you seek it, you will find consent for the following motion. That notwithstanding any standing order or usual practice of the House, the remainder of the debate pursuant to Standing Order 66 on motion number 45 to concur in the 12th report of the Standing Committee on Finance will be deemed to have taken place, the question been deemed put, and a recorded division be deemed requested and deferred pursuant to Standing Order 66 bracket 2. Thank you.
I'm already hearing some no's, so therefore it is not approved. We have another point of order. The honourable member Kelowna Lake Country.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Recently at the Human Resources Committee, at the HUMA Committee, we had testimony from the CEO of the Central Okanagan Food Bank who stated that they're expecting an additional 100% increase in food bank usage over the next 3 to 4 months. So
no, is the honourable member trying to table documents or is she looking for a motion?
I'm sure you'll find unanimous consent to take.
No, there's already not unanimous consent. Again, on the unanimous consent motions, I just want to remind members that they really need to have conversations with each of the party's leaders, House leaders, and then we can maybe be able to move these motions along as long as we have unanimous consent.
My words are like a rope. Is
this all points of orders?
Fixed around my throat.
Yes. The honourable member for Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke.
Oh, we got another
Madam
poo.
Speaker, we just received news that the Calgary Food Bank has doubled its number of veterans that are coming in for helping food. I'd request that I can table this report, this very important report about our veterans.
No, I'm already hearing no's. No, not willing to table the report. The honourable member Saskatoon Grasswood.
Madam Speaker, yesterday in committee, the Environment Minister admitted to bullying 6 senators trying to gut Bill C-234. Can you imagine that?
Honourable member, is this a motion or then it's a part of debate? So the honourable member can raise that during debates. The honourable member for King Vaughan. King Vaughan,
yeah,
yes.
You got it right. Congratulations on becoming a grandmother. You'll be able to spoil that beautiful little baby. If you seek it, Madam Speaker, I hope... I haven't even said it yet. Give me a break. If you seek it, Madam Speaker, I hope you will find unanimous consent for the following motion.
I just mentioned about the unanimous consent.
Oh, he's making okay, Crypto, I'll check that out. Thank you, Darth Pixie. What's with the Darth Pixie? I don't recall that.
The honourable member's already been told that she wouldn't get unanimous consent, so I just want to remind members that needs to happen, and it hasn't happened, so the honourable members have already said no to any unanimous consent motion. The honourable member for Caribou Prince George.
Congratulations, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise on with respect to the newly elected Premier from Northwest Territories, R.J. Simpson, who's asked
I'll
for
put
a
it up in a second.
Just
want to see the poo.
Penalizing carbon tax.
Is this a motion again?
I believe you'll find
there's not unanimous consent. I'm already hearing no's. Is this another
Respect to the newly elected Premier. From Northwest Territories, R.J. Simpson, who's asked for a carve-out from this government's
I was just talking.
Penalizing carbon tax.
Is this a motion again?
I believe you'll find it out.
There's not unanimous consent. I'm already hearing no's.
Okay, sorry. Okay, well, what I'm going to do here, I had the mic off. It's Trudeau isn't going to speak for another 15 minutes. Pierre Poilievre, one of the hardest working politicians, cannot find him anywhere. He's working somewhere. There's a bunch of these point of orders. They get more and more heated. They actually started getting exciting. I just moved ahead to the next 10 minutes to actual live. We're 10 minutes behind live because of the talking I've done. So he's going to do an announcement. I'm going to just quickly on the announcement of the housing filed thus far. It seems to me what they're doing is they're building up a program that they already have in place, which is basically the old wartime program. But what they're doing is they're dropping it in doses. So this last dose was a plan, pre-approved permits, which if you can guys look at my community, I said this like a year and a half ago. You have pre-approved houses that the municipalities have to approve without any delay. And then you have a bunch of these things, and then you make companies that, or you assist companies in making prefab sections of these houses, so these houses can go faster. And then third, you have to make sure that average people, blue-collar people, people with construction knowledge can get the loans to build these houses in mass. Because what seems to be right now, this is where the hitch is. Yes, they've helped these permits, and what is helping is developers, people who, and investors, lawyers who can get loans very easily. They now have more assistance in assisting it because, it's an architectural part of the drawings. It's a large, expensive part. So they've gotten more assistance, whereas they haven't helped the real people who need to get these houses. It's best to have someone build their own home. The pride is just phenomenal when you do that. And, of course, most of it will be contracted out, right? They won't be building it themselves. But that's how people say, I built it myself. But they really didn't. They're going to have contracted. And that's the next stage that they don't have because you can't get your loan. And then, of course, bringing the prices of property values down and all that. But thus far, I do think that this, finally, they've done a section that makes kind of sense. And that's the book of pre-approved permitted houses for the Canadian market because it's the municipalities that approve housing. So this is kind of like ramming papers down your city's throat. Hey, you can't not approve this house, and don't give me 6 months to a year to be approved or not approved. Okay, so that's it. Now we're gonna listen to these poos, and then in 20 minutes. The 23 minutes, we're 22 now, we're going to, I'm going to move it over. So let's listen to the point of order.
I'm already hearing no's. Is this another point of order? The
no's.
Member for, just a second here, it's, I'm drawing a blank, Aurora, Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And I just wanted to point out that I was in the committee meeting that the members opposite referred to when he stood, and what he said was in fact factually incorrect.
Yeah, though, I mean, what's happening at committee I can't really weigh on as a speaker, and this is a point of debate. L'honorable...
The honourable member for Mégontic-L'Érable. Thank you, Madam Speaker. As you know, the points of order can be raised after question period during what was said during that time. And during question period, there was a mention of a 27% increase in Quebec, which is, if members, Madam Speaker, what's your point of order about? I would like to ask for a leave to table documents. No, there is no consent for that.
For Portage-Lisker has point of order.
Point of order. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and congratulations on the birth of your recent grandchild. And I'd also like to wish my honourable colleague across the way, the House Leader, a good next month as she heads into her birth. And as somebody that's having a child in early January with a very similar due date, I can commend you for the work that you're doing at 8 months pregnant in this House. But I rise today on a fairly urgent matter, as it has come to light very recently that Canadian families will be paying $700 more on groceries next year, and I would seek unanimous consent to table the Canada's food price.
Table documents, or is this a motion?
For unanimous consent.
Well, there's already individuals saying no. We'll be able to. Again, if you can go and have those conversations before coming to the House, it'll be a lot easier. The honourable member for Haliburton, Kawartha, Lakes Brock.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Coming out of question period, 130.
This is one I very rarely but disagree with you there, Darth Pixie. The housing. Okay, so first of all, the concrete cracks. It's a part of the nature of the beast. It's sometimes needs to be reworked, and it may not necessarily been at the blend. It's the conditions that are outside of the control, like the ground may have frozen a certain part more because of the metal content in the soil. Like, it is all kinds of weird stuff about it. Concrete cracks, it just needs to be fixed. And concrete crack repairs are labor intensive, but they can be fixed. It's not a big deal. A lot of people are so scared of labor, they make it like a big deal. Well, it's just labor, and labor is fairly reasonably priced. That's my pick on the concrete. There's some concrete, a mess that happened here. There's a slurry. And sometimes when you do it in the cold, you can have troubles. So there's all kinds of things. It's not, we always think, oh, it's easy because we do it so much. It's not as easy as we all think. And mistakes happen, and you may have no idea that, like I said, the soil content of that part could have been off. There's a possibility someone made an error. There is that. I'm not sure of your building. I'm just trying to defend the concrete industry because it's definitely being pushed at the farthest limits on temperatures and pricing, right? With people, their industry's been pretty hard hit with the carbon taxes and stuff like that. It's an intensive business, and this is where I disagree. Though gently with a nice happy smile. The last time they did the building was the wartime homes, and there was messes. There was all kinds of disasters. I think we need to forget about perfection for a while, and just because what's been happening too much in our construction industry, knowing it. There's been too many white-collar people who ask for demand perfection. Well, when you're homeless, you're like, fuck you. Oh, pardon my French. I want a roof, and I think that all hands on deck need to be there, and mistakes will be made when you run, right? If you jog, you can see more things, but when you're sprinting, you're going to miss, and that's my opinion on it. We need to stop everyone who puts a roadblock in the way and kick them out of the way, and be okay with the major mistakes that are going to happen, just for the sake to get it done. And then once, this is my opinion, and once it's at like 80%, because they said we need 5 million homes or whatever. It's right now we need 3 million homes. But once we have, say this year we were to build 2 million homes, then you can start looking at, hey, let's make sure these regulations and no corners are cut. In my opinion, because a concrete crack can be fixed, a roof leaking, all these things are minor things. They can all be fixed. But what you can't fix is when there's zero home there for the person who's under the bridge. And that's my idea of it. But chicken, This is Rickard. He says, hate to say, but chicken coop are not a home. I small homes, where people don't go outside as much. So property sizes, I believe, especially for these tiny cookie cutter houses, are small. People don't even go outside and have a garden. You look around. They don't even have a garden when they have a huge backyard. So especially for people who just want homes, that's all it is. It's just a fix for that, in my opinion. It feels like a fishbowl in that city. Yeah. I think that they should have sections of fish bowls. You can't, put down an insulated yurt, composting toilet while I save money and build a house. So that would be nice, yeah. Cities. The issue is and the problem in this country is there used to be like vents, which I call a TP valve, temperature pressure valves. So if I'm in Niagara, okay, the cheapest home in the area is $400,000. I looked yesterday, the cheapest home, and it's a crap house, it needs major work. $400,000 is the cheapest. So for me, I'm like, well, in this kind of rural area, and I want out. I'm like, well, it's just too expensive. What you do is you move 45 minutes away, and then you get lower prices. Well, now I go 45 minutes away. The houses are still $250 is the cheapest house. It's not a big deal. So there's no temperature pressure valve for people. So what needs to happen, in my opinion, is building has to happen everywhere because the problem is everywhere. There's no relief valve. So the only cheap place in the country right now is northern Manitoba. Northern Manitoba is the cheapest part of the country. That's it. There's nowhere else you can go live if you want to go drop in prices with everything included. Remember, when you may have a cheaper houses, but everything else is also expensive a lot of times. So that's my whole rant on it. It needs to be built, and the idea of holding back and making it perfect is never going to fix the problem. We need 3 million homes today, not tomorrow. They always like to quote, it's actually 2.4 million homes today. They like to quote what we need in 10 years, but what we need today is 2.4, and what we built was 220,000. So you can see how well we're failing, and any idea to make it perfect is just going to assist in the fail. Don't get stabbed. What the fuck? I don't even. I used to have footage of it. Oh yeah. Don't. Yeah, no. I want you to do the footage. Crypta has a site. I would love to see Crypta Maria do footage of her talking to the people in her city and the West Coast, and of course the rap. Basically, that would be great. That would be, I think, thing. But I agree. Yeah, you could probably get stabbed unless you're doling out drugs. Oh, but then you could still get stabbed. They used to kick out the homeless. Now we have stabbings by my old work. Yeah, the homeless. There's members. Okay, so let's listen to these politicians, and in 10 minutes we will have Trudeau has an announcement for housing. The last one, I think it was substantial. It was really helping developers and lawyers who can get loans easily. What needs to happen is I think it's $200 billion. It needs to be minimum $200 billion to secure loans for working class and middle class first time home buyers. And the government won't do that. They'll give money to billionaires and millionaires in the oodles, but giving to the working class, they need to be forced and scared into it. And yeah. Blah, 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 blah.
Order. I have a point of order here. I'd like to hear it.
Coming out of the question period, 133 Ontario chiefs have taken the federal government to court over what they are calling a discriminatory carbon tax. I'd like unanimous consent to table this document.
There's no unanimous consent to table the document. Okay, another point of order?
Madam Speaker, I do have
it must be Christmas coming along. All these points of order are just gifts. The Honourable for Sherwood Parkport, Saskatchewan.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. It is the season of hope. So just despite past experience, I am hopeful that this there will be agreement to table the results of the vote on...
There is no agreement. The honourable member for Timmins James Bay has also a point of order. I hope this is a real point of order. That's acceptable?
Sure. Absolutely. I'm sure you'll get all party unanimous support. To thank you, Speaker, for your excellent work this morning and for the people on the table. I certainly think we all support...
I'm sorry. Again, we don't have unanimous consent, and I had a hard time hearing the member to see what he was looking for unanimous consent for, but we already heard no, so at this point in time, we're just going to keep going. Okay. Oh. I
have the honor to tell the House that the Senate has sent a message saying that it has adopted the following bill, C-60, which provides credit for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2024.
Tabling of documents.
Okay.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of
so we're going to go to
Emergency Preparedness.
Thank you. Going to go over to see if we have any Pierre, which we don't. No Pierre, and in 9 minutes, apparently, we're going to get Heritage Minister is discussing the
une entente qui est transparente, une loi qui...
Yeah, basically the online minister is talking about the Online News Act, which basically is awful. They're giving money to... Okay. All right, just coming out. Okay, let's see if what it looks like. Oh, there we go. Oh, is she coming out? She's coming. So what do we got? Well, I'm waiting for this. Curry Barracks in Calgary had... Oh, Curry Barracks had lots of what? The barracks in Calgary, that was gone in the 80s, or early 90s, the Calgary base. It was a good sale, I guess. Rickardy says 10 sales are up, of course. You know. Okay, where is she? Where is this minister? She's coming out. This is about the online. Okay, we got Buddy here. He's happy.
Bonjour tout le monde. Donc aujourd'hui, c'est la phase finale dans le rôle du gouvernement pour la mise en œuvre de la loi sur les nouvelles en ligne avec la publication de la réglementation qui donne les dernières directives au CRTC. Donc à partir de
let's see if she's in English.
Commercial relationships between tech giants.
Oh, here we go. Oh, here we go.
Whatever negotiations and agreements fall under the legislation and the regulations. It's a great day for the sustainability of our newsrooms. We know that there's been a lot of layoffs. More than thousands of journalists have lost their jobs across the country in the past decade. Having more equitable relationships and commercial relationships between tech giants and our newsroom is an essential part of ensuring the sustainability of our news sector and ensuring that journalism continues to play its role in democracy. It's also a first of its kind in the world where we have a transparent and viable legislation where smaller news outlets also have a seat at the negotiating table.
Okay, all right. This is the high point, people. of this announcement. Okay, so what's happening is Google, I'm going to give you Google is giving $100 billion. They're forced to give $100 billion to the media because the media hasn't been able to keep up with the new the old model doesn't work very well with social media, right? As well, right? And people are reading less. International news, all these other reasons, and people don't agree with what the legacy media is saying to them when they're pushing an agenda a lot of times. So people are going to these smaller outlets. So what they've decided is to take money from Google and give it to these legacy media. A majority of them are legacy. That's who's going to get it. And it's $100 billion. First of all, it was going to be 100 million. 172 they thought they were going to squeeze out of Google. Well, they struck a deal to get the Google has been put over the barrel, and then they said, okay, we'll give you 100 million a year. So they're giving 100 million a year. And now this is the fun part. Now this, like I said, this is the high point because, okay, yeah, they're going to get the money. Now, all of these news agencies are all going to have to fight for this $100 million. And they're already attacking. CBC they're all like, CBC better not get any of this money, right? They're already hating them. And they're getting some money, but it's less because what it is apparently it's going to be how many journalists you have on your staff is how much money you'll get. And if you're a part of a group, like I won't get any of this money. I'm going to try, but I don't expect to get any of it. Just enough so I know how bad it is. I know because I'm not considered a journalist, even though there's no criteria. It's not like a plumbing certification. I can or cannot be a plumber according to passing a test and also paying my annual duties. So this is basically there is none of that for journalism. So it's some arbitrarily baloney media that has to decide it, and they're all going to fight for the $100 million from Google, and you know who's going to get it. It's going to be the large companies are going to get the majority of it, the large broadcasters, and then the trickle to the rest of them. I don't think it's really going to help for long, but it's definitely tying the companies with the social media a lot closer, and that part hasn't been reported on at all because the media has no incentive to. And the new Google-y medias like us, we don't have the power to, to even, to go in to report on it. No one's even watch it anyway. What they've done, another thing is there's 100. Once you have 100,000 subscribers, you can get a check mark. Well, they're giving it to news agencies that don't have the 100,000 and politicians who don't have the 100,000. So they're giving them artificial check marks. And this is by legislation. I don't think YouTube or Google wanted to do any of this. They've been forced to. So basically, what it's doing is it's putting people, certain groups, at a higher level of star whatever than they actually are in truth rewarded. So these are some things, and there's a lot more that comes in. Basically, it's tipping the scales as much as possible.
Tech giants. So this is extremely good for Canadians. It's good for democracy, and I think it's a good step for the rest of the world as well. La loi entre en vigueur le 19 décembre et donc les plateformes ont tout intérêt à négocier le plus rapidement possible avec les médias pour avoir des ententes qui répondent aux exigences prescrites dans la loi puis aussi dans la réglementation. Et l'objectif des plateformes, c'est évidemment d'en venir à des ententes négociées, de ne pas avoir à, si jamais il n'y en a pas d'entente, à ce que cette entente-là soit tranchée par un arbitre qui serait nommé par le CRTC. Donc, parce qu'il y a un processus pour obtenir une exemption, c'est-à-dire que quand les plateformes ont rencontré les exigences prescrites dans la loi, ils sont exemptés du processus d'arbitrage.
Le 7% à CBC Radio-Canada, comment vous êtes arrivé à ce chiffre-là, 1? Et 2, qu'est-ce que vous dites à ceux qui disent que c'est injuste? Ça se trouve à enlever 7 millions aux plus petits médias, comme les médias communautaires, entre autres, qui en arrachent.
Bien, premièrement, c'est important de rappeler qu'il ne s'agit pas ici d'un programme gouvernemental. C'est une loi pour établir des relations.
Yeah, the CRTC is going to be able to call up YouTube for about certain channels like this and to say, hey, we don't want you to help this channel and downgrade this through algorithm. That's conspiracy theory talk until it actually happens, and it's coming.
D'exclure le diffuseur public complètement, c'était
She sure
un principe.
sells. She's mostly, I know that she's pretty.
Mais en même temps, on a tenu
She's mostly French. So.
On Google.
There we go.
And we know that, how the news sector is divided. It's a third of journalists are at CBC Radio-Canada, about a third of journalists
One-third
at
of journalists.
and a third of journalists in publishers, the publishing sector. But for broadcasters, it's not all journalists that their work is primarily for the online content. So, and again, I remind that this is a deal between Google and the media. So this is why, 30% represents pretty much a third of the total of the envelope. So it's pretty fair. So we tried to make sure that there's a fair compensation for broadcasters, for publishers, and we capped the amount for CBC Radio-Canada.
Where do you stand with Meta?
Legacy media
only. Are you hoping
only.
for a similar deal that you have here with Google? Where do things stand? Are you at the
Small
negotiating
YouTube channels
table
won't
with
get
Meta?
anything.
What's happening there?
Well, it takes two to negotiate, and everybody has seen the approach that Meta and Facebook has taken, which is to not participate in the legislative process, not to participate in the regulatory process. So no, there is no negotiations currently with Facebook. However, the legislation will be enforced on December 19, and the CRTC will have to examine which platforms fall under the legislation, and I'm sure that CRTC will pay close attention to Facebook and Meta.
C'est quoi le plus tôt qu'on pourrait voir des chèques, peu importe, des versements, des redevances arriver aux différents médias qui y ont droit?
J'ai pas de date exacte, December 19. So the CRTC, Quebecers are questioning more and more the quality of what they have access to on Facebook and Meta. I've said right from the beginning that the decision that Mark Zuckerberg took to cut news and fact-based content on their platform is, leaving their platform to misinformation and disinformation. It's also a rupture with the social contract that the platform has with Canadians, that they can share whatever they want with their families and friends. But now the only content that they cannot share is good quality journalism. This is not the right approach for the platform, and I hope that they see the common sense in that.
What tools are you using, Minister, to bring Meta back to the table, but to get them to comply?
Well, the law will be enforced on December 19. So the CRTC will have to examine whether the platform does fall under the legislation, because, yes, they are trying to ban news, but we know that Canadians find ways to share news anyways. So their ban is not really fully working. So will they fall under the legislation or not? The CRTC needs to pay attention to that. They're independent, but the legislation is pretty clear. So there's that. Also, the broadcasters have filed a complaint at the Competition Bureau. Again, it's another independent organization, but they will, I suppose, at some point review that complaint. So we'll see what happens with that. We've also, we're working on a new legislation. I don't know if it's been voted yet or not, but to, give new powers under the Competition Act. So we'll see if that is helpful when it comes to Meta and Facebook.
Forcer Facebook à compenser, à verser des redevances aussi, compte tenu que c'est pas complètement
you can tell she
bloqué
thinks she's winning. I think humility needs to be taken on this one. They think that they won because they have just given the money to the large players. I don't think that Facebook, so it looks like she just said CRTC will be in charge, will have more extended powers of competition. That's what she's talking about. This is what happened, very similar to, if anyone knows a Rolls-Royce, Triumph, and Comron or whatever another name. These are all British automobile companies, and if you're aware, they no longer are British automobile companies. Tata Motors actually bought Rolls-Royce, but they closed up, shuttered up, and the reason is they had a protective industry for their automotive industries, what UK did for years and years, and really strongly insulated them and made forced companies and government and people to give them extra money to keep them support. And then what happened was when another government came in and took those supports away because they didn't have the money, the Thatcher years, they crumpled like tinfoil. Just crumpled. So now there's no such thing as a Triumph motorcycle, which a lot of people really liked, and it had nothing to do with their sales. Their sales were actually going up. It didn't matter. It was that they were such an inefficient business because the government had been propping them up. So this is what's going to happen is that the government's propping up these media, and in 5-10 years they're just going to go down faster. It's just never really worked. Who's this Mary Pippin? Like, why are you even here? They definitely are they're not going to change it. There's going to be no change. Conservatives this is a very big conservative move to control media. It's not a liberal leaning thing unless you go so far to the extreme of the left of control. That's communism, and this is what they're doing. They're doing a lot of it, and they're doing it for the sake of helping industry that's hurting. But what's happening, and they're failing to see, is Mickey Mouse organizations like me and many others, hundreds of them, are propping up, and they're starting to make the money to replace the old way of news media, just not as exciting as the new way. And so what they've decided is that the new way has got to go, and the old way has to be propped up, which it won't work. My example of the automotive industry in the UK, you can Google it up. This is very, very similar. And conservatives taking this away, I don't have any, I hope, but I have zero faith to conservatives calling speech. Think about it. A priest calling speech, it's like bread and butter, you know? Totally. The right is always against speech. Recently, we're seeing the right leaning about freedom of speech. So there's where I have hope. But I don't see this changing. In my opinion, it's here to stay. And all the little industries, they only want certain people to be able to speak to protect our ears. And it'll work. They've done the studies on the feeds, and we're lazy. So when you're just watching, because remember, you're watching the news, you're just watching entertainment. You have another life. This isn't your life. So you're scrolling, and what's in front of you is what you eat. Most people won't go and search out that which isn't in front of their feed, and it's been proven. So that's what they're going to do. They're just going to wipe out channels like mine from their feed and give people who are, like, air quotes here, the ones that are respected. And what's going to happen is, because it isn't actually interesting and engaging, and it isn't modern engaging enough for what people demand, it's actually going to hurt their whole industry, because people are just going to walk away in droves because it's boring. And it's not what people want anymore. The new stuff is not higher broadcast quality. It's more engaging, though. It's a hell of a lot more. Like Rickardy, very true. I just read Rickardy's thing, and who half trolls me, I think. Well, maybe not Rickardy, but I still will engage with the people. They don't. They block comments and don't want you to speak, because it's the old method. This is my whole whack job opinion, and it's actually going to hurt media in Canada. Anyway, let's listen to some more of this. It's very smug. I think she's a little bit too smug, and it's going to hit a wall very shortly with all the infighting that's going to happen for this $100 million. It's like, remember, these are all barrel of ink companies, and they're all going to be fighting for the same money. You know.
C'est les organismes responsables de trancher. Donc là, c'est le CRTC qui est indépendant. Nous, la loi, elle est claire. À partir du moment où il y a des nouvelles sur une plateforme qui rencontrent des critères, comme le fait d'avoir plus de 20 000 usagers uniques, pas 20 000, mais 20 millions d'usagers uniques par mois, comme le fait de faire des profits de plus de 1 milliard au Canada.
Okay, let's go to Trudeau.
Normalement, la loi s'applique à eux, donc on verra
announcement.
comment le CRTC veille à l'application. Ben, c'est au CRTC à regarder ça maintenant. Nous, on a fait notre travail. On a passé la loi, on a fini.
Okay. Right. We got Trudeau. We got Trudeau up. He is usually fashionably late.
Deep family roots here, still have family
here.
who live here. I got my start as a teacher here living out in BC, so I understand how much it is a draw to be able to live in this incredibly beautiful, vibrant city and incredibly wonderful province. But with all this growth, it means that governments have to make sure that housing is getting built and getting built in the right way. And that's what our housing accelerator is all about. Today, we are extremely happy to announce that we've reached a deal with the City of Vancouver that will see over 40,000 homes built over the next decade. This deal will mean less red tape, more housing built near transit, more affordable rental housing, and more density. Homes in accessible, vibrant communities, the very places people want to live and raise their families in. Today's announcement actually brings the total number of new housing units unlocked by our housing accelerator to almost 300,000. This is well over the initial 100,000 we'd hoped to unlock when we announced the Accelerator Fund back in 2022.
We need 3 million homes right now.
On a demandé aux communautés à travers le pays de voir grand et d'avoir de l'ambition. Et à cause de ça, on livre de vrais résultats. Tout ça s'ajoute au fait que l'initiative pour la création rapide de logements a aussi dépassé ses objectifs.
I can hear the wind. I don't think there is an audience.
Challenge. There's no doubt. But we have met big challenges before as a country. And the best way to solve housing challenges is what I said, to work together. Just over a year ago, I was here in the Vancouver area announcing funding to the Squamish First Nation to build thousands of rental units in the Sinak project. Actually, your boss was there. David was there just before he actually became premier, and it was great to see with him already the work we were going to do. And the Sinak project is what we've been working on in various ways for 8 years, with a focus both on reconciliation, on responsible community development.
It's bad. Okay, the Liberals haven't even brought in enough people to house them. So we don't have enough homes for the Canadians we have, and they brought in what were the numbers, 500,000, whatever. So we only built 220,000 homes last year. So basically, we didn't even do half enough. Weird words. Of what we needed to build. That's where we're at. We're not even building enough for the influx of people that are coming in. So the problem is only going to get worse. Their accelerator fund is saying 400,000 homes in the next 10 years is not even touching it. I think it's personally, I would be embarrassed to do this announcement. If without $200 billion, and I'm on the low end, it should be $500 billion. Without $200 billion in this program, it's not going to do anything. And the announcements should be yelled at, I think. But they aren't. They're getting cheered on by legacy media, who's just about getting a boon right now. They're like, oh, they're doing something. Well, doing something isn't good enough. When they're bringing in record numbers of immigrants and not even making a program that supports that.
On protecting the environment and creating economic opportunities that provide growth for everyone. And if you have any doubts of what a great project that was that we all worked on together, even Poilievre points to that project as one of the great successes of this government and its partners. So you know it's got to be pretty good. This construction site where we are today will become rental housing thanks to federal support, with plans to be complete in March of 2025. And I know the province has been introducing legislation to deliver more homes and modernize zoning rules. Federal government is ready to keep being a partner with all areas of government that are ready to make progress on building more homes faster. Cet automne, on a aussi déposé un projet de loi pour supprimer la TPS sur la construction de nouveaux logements locatifs. Et il y a déjà 300 000 Canadiens qui profitent du compte d'épargne libre d'impôt pour l'achat d'une première propriété. On sait que la hausse du coût de la vie est difficile pour les Canadiens.
Yeah, a great, I'll put him on mute here, a great program that was happening before he's doing his French thing is basically, here, hold on here a second. I gotta get, alt. But the prefab housing is great. And there was just this recent study of productivity, and productivity in Canada is actually going down. And one of the major reasons, according to the study, well-rounded study, is that basically what happens is when what companies want is when they have a little bit of a hole in their employment, they basically just hire more cheap labor to fill that, and they don't treat them well. When you're underpaid for whatever industry you're in, when you're paid less for other people in the industry, you get treated like crap as well. It's an extra bonus for paying people less. That you don't get respect. So this has been happening. There's been this huge influx of semi-skilled workers in these positions, and productivity is actually going down in the country. And they're saying the big problem is that the company's demand for new workers is not driving innovation, and what it's doing is just basically, lowering the value management has for their own workers, thus lowering production. So Canada is the only country in the world of the G7, actually the G20, that actually has lowering production levels. It's definitely not. It's not SSC anymore. Thank you, John MH. IUI, interesting, useless information. It was always going to change, but I figured it needed to change after SS. We had a Nazi in the House. I think I think it was a good timing, Kairos, and it was always going to change. So it's something a little bit more original. IUI Cafe, interesting, useless information. So I think that we basically have all 8. We had 8 years. I don't think that Trudeau. This is one people of like. Angry. This is why I'm not so angry as other people, and I cover this the most, or a lot. We needed Trudeau after Harper. Harper was pretty damn harsh, and he was getting very mean to media, and he was getting very cold, and the country was getting cold. And Trudeau, at least we didn't, maybe not in power, but his voice needed to be heard, and the cannabis being legalized, that was huge. It probably never would have happened without Trudeau. So, I personally have to put that there. And so, basically, that is the first thing, is that kind of needed him. And then he, the LGBTQ community, maybe it all went too far, I think. And now we've had too many years of it, because I believe that the Liberals didn't have any policy on housing, anything like that. They didn't think of anything for the blue-collar people. They only thought from a management high CEO point, and that's bring in immigrants, fill the gaps in employees so our companies can make more money, our investors get more money, increase the assets, because that helps us all have more money so we can invest in the world. And they believed that they were the only ones to do it. And what they've done is they've destroyed the middle class in the process as much as possible. And there's a lot of arrogance we have right now, because your home increased. So you have $500,000 in the bank because your home increased because of no work from you, except you got a loan. You shouldn't be arrogant. But that's where we're at. I get better deals from your dealer. That's now out of business. I like packaged pot myself. I personally like it packaged. I like that the companies pay taxes, and I support that. I personally support that industry. It's nothing against the old, but I'd rather have it packaged with a nice shiny label on my, and that's my opinion. Nothing against the black market, especially when you need it cheaper, But I do like the ability that there are annoying and annoying once in a while government agents checking to make sure that the mold count is at a reasonable level in the place. You know what I mean? Like, these things happen in China like crazy, like melamine and baby formula, because people in business sometimes get into dark, shadowy corners and just go with it for way too many years. And that's why I believe, keeping the thing. I did not see that coming. I knew it was coming. The SS had to go. It was always a joke. It was always tongue-in-cheek, safe space. And it was also intentional. I believe that politics should be a safe. We should have a place to be able to say what you want, without having this huge backlash, without huge extended backlash against you for an opinion that is semi-formulated thought. Because that's what politics are. A lot of times we have an idea that's not formulated. You have to debate it to formulate your thought. Oh, well, maybe that isn't the greatest plan. I have all kinds of ideas like that. Rickardy says, I can see my dealer's plans growing and what's in it. Yeah, that's nice. Having people see it's legal, kind of, because people can grow 4 plants. Grandma can make a couple bucks. Your babushkas can make a few dollars selling a little bit of grass on her little pension and stay in her home. I think these are good things, and that's, yeah. And Joe, you can all hate Trudeau, and the problem is the reason how he got elected was it wasn't 100% bad, and it's not going to always be that way. So this is my warning, is my thinking. But the housing and all these other things are in. So there's my rant. Yes, Sean, troll me later. I know you've been trolling.
Et les prêts d'études fédéraux. And just today, we've announced that Prince Edward Island is reaching the milestone of $10 a day child care. They're already the 7th province to do this. They will say, though, it was right here in BC that we signed the first deal with the federal government in the province to deliver affordable early learning and child care. Already, our Canada-wide program is delivering hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in savings every month to Canadian families. Listen, people are working hard to keep up with the cost of living, which can be especially hard as the Christmas holiday approaches. That's why our government never stops fighting to secure the promise of Canada. The promise that each generation stands on the successes of the previous one and can achieve even more. We're taking action that provides support to Canadians of all ages, protecting the CPP, strengthening health care, delivering dental care like the new Canadian Dental Care Plan that opened applications to seniors this week, on top of the hundreds of thousands of kids who have healthier smiles already thanks to our federal dental care announcements. We're making sure that all Canadians see opportunity in Canada's future with good jobs and a clean economy, ability to build a home and a family in the places they want to live. That's why it's so important to build more homes faster. That's exactly what we're doing here today. Canada is the very best country in the world. Let's keep working hard together to make it even better. It is now my great pleasure to turn it over to our Minister of Housing, my friend and yours, Sean Fraser.
Thanks so much, Prime Minister, to my colleagues and counterparts.
No,
at
I
different levels
can't
of
alter his
government. It's a great privilege to be able to be
Not
here
with
to
the
share,
software. If you donate,
tremendous
maybe.
news. It's going to help us build more homes in Vancouver.
I know the
faster
software.
Than otherwise would have been the case. Just on the way in, it's always good to be on a site where people are actually doing the building. Minister Cowan and I
All right, so his announcement, basically his announcement was nothing burger times 2, because Fraser's there, nothing. They announced more homes, They didn't make it and toted their wonderful housing accelerator program, which hasn't. They said it said 400,000 homes. It's helped build, and as Pierre Poilievre had said, it also didn't do.
We've spoken a lot about monetary policy, obviously.
Didn't do anything.
Better when more people understand.
But the increase amount of people that are coming.
And we will continue to learn and adapt, guided by our commitment to delivering price stability for Canadians. Thank you very much.
Okay, so there's the speech by Mark Carney. He did a speech today. Yeah.
Standing Order 36A, I have the honor to table in both official languages the government's responses to 11 petitions. These returns will be tabled in an electronic format.
Introduction of, or tabling of documents. Dépôt de projet de loi émanant du gouvernement.
Statements by ministers. Reports from
Oh, I guess that's it. Okay, so Rickardy says 87 years old will be able to smile again. Yeah, it's 87 they're starting with, but honestly, like, and I'm not like leaning liberal here, but I'm trying to say the truth as I see it. And what I think they're doing is they're starting with, I don't know why 87. Probably because there's only 12 people that they think will use the program. So 87 and above will use it, and also some kids or whatever under 12. And then it's going to squeeze until we get to March, until it's going to go all the way to 70-year-olds and then all the way up to 18-year-olds. So it's getting on both ends, right? The young and the old. So that's the program, the way it seems decent. Now, I believe that the Liberals think that they're going to run on this, and the Conservatives will be against it. I don't know how that is. The cannabis industry is tanking. Oh, yeah, too many opened up, and there's a lot of regulation. Cannabis industry needs it needs assistance from the government. They thought they just would open it and it would just make tons of money. Not the case. It wasn't really the case. It needs a little bit of assistance, but businesses are going to have to close down before they do that. First, they're going to have to see the turmoil in the industry, and I haven't seen many of them close down. A few, but they're all hurting, but not closing. And that's my opinion. I think they should do something about it now. They opened it up an industry, and then they made it almost impossible to make money off of it. So they're almost pushing the black market. By not making a policy that's profitable enough for an honest business person, right? Taxes have to go up. Taxes have to go up because the amount of money the government is giving to individuals has gone up, and bureaucracy has gone increased. So they have to increase it, unless the only other way is to increase output, and thus you like say output of oil, more oil, every oil barrel $1 in tax. So you produce more oil, you get more taxes. That's not going to happen with the regulation process that the Liberals put in. And native weed shops don't charge taxes? I didn't know that. Yeah, but you got to go to the reserve. Rickardy, can you answer that, please? I guess, yeah, you got to. Oh, yeah, obviously, you got to go to the reserve. I know the answer to that. Homes aren't for regular people; they're in for investors, aren't they? Victoriously crowned. Alrighty, thanks for watching.